From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins. The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, running the stats on Gus and his penchant for huge turnarounds. Miami? Tampering? What? And is FSU hoops for real? We will know soon enough. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it, sip the juice. The world's first and only clinically proven energy shot, everybody. We tell you about this all the time. 78% of folks after a 14-day clinical trial said that, yes, these shots were effective at reducing brain fog. Try it yourself. Get into your best possible mindset as we enter this grand new year of ours, 2025, year of our Lord, everybody. By the way, some people have noticed that the Warchant BOGO promo code hasn't been out there for a while. So somebody, Corey, came on the tribal council asking about it and said they were going to put it in an order. And I was like, you know what? It's not currently active, but if you send me a screenshot of your order, I will send you a box of Vitamin Energy. I've got some overstock over here at the Midtown offices.
Man, that's nice.
Well, there's like 5 other people in my DMs that are like, hey, man, if you're feeling generous, I'll take a box as well.
It's fair. It's
so,
fair. It's a fair point.
No good deed goes unpunished, but try some Vitamin Energy for yourself, everybody. Try the variety pack, different flavors, different varieties, no sugar crash, 260 milligrams, all natural caffeine, doing it for you. Just like Warchant.com does, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Why don't you leave us a 5-star rating review, hit the thumbs up. We always appreciate those things. Saw very kind reviews. I don't have them up on my screen anymore, Corey, but I didn't even have to. I could have just read it off the cuff and not had to worry about anybody saying anything mean about us. But we had the last. We've got 2 feeds, unfortunately. Both of them. It shows you the last 2 reviews, and they both are 5-star. Shout out to Whack10, who was talking to us about the ineligible downfield ruling in October or something. He gave us a 5-star review, and Rob Knoll 11 gave us a 5-star. He says, "Great show to get me going through the long drives for work during the day. Love the banter between Corey and Aslan."
Well, that's very nice. We love you, dear listener. Was that Rob that said that?
Yeah,
we love you, Rob.
How you doing, Corey?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Had a decent weekend. We were a little transparency. We're recording this before the Sunday football NFL playoff games, but not before. Well, and also before the Monday night championship game. We still got a lot of football here coming up. But yeah, man, good weekend. Got to see the kid. Heading back down. Going to be really cold. Going to maybe snow in Tallahassee. Heading back to some treacherous weather. It's fun. Good times.
Literally, the weather app on my phone literally shows a snowflake on Tuesday with like a 45% chance next to it.
Yeah, man. How about that? That's going to be exciting. Oh, and more exciting news on this front up here in Atlanta. I didn't tell you this, but I walked into my house on Tuesday. Whenever I got back, I was gone for a week.
Oh, no.
There was a dead bird in my downstairs toilet.
How? What?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Still trying to come to grips with the how. No idea.
Was there a foul odor in your home, or
no?
Okay.
Nope. It was. I went to go pee because it was a long trip. I held it. I'm like, let me rush in here. Oh my God, what is this? You can imagine. That's not something your brain is even remotely thinking it's going to see when you open up the lid to a toilet. Oh no, I didn't open up the lid because the lid was open. When you go to,
Yeah, I got it. So, like bird that you could hold in the size of your hand, or like pretty decent size?
Like the size of I'd say like the size of a cardinal.
Okay.
It wasn't red. It was brown. But but it was like the size. It wasn't a bald eagle. It was the size of a cardinal, like the size of about the size of a hand.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with everyone, I did try to flush it. Because I was like, okay, that toilet's seen some things. It could maybe get in there.
So
but,
did you check up? We're like, all right, I can't go to the bathroom because there's a dead bird in here. Did you
that too. That too. I didn't pee on the bird.
Okay.
I checked up.
All right.
And then I took a picture, texted it to Stephanie.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, my God, because I told her it was a bird.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, don't touch it. I'm like, I know I'm not going to touch a dead bird. Then she was the one that suggested, well, maybe you could flush it. So I'm like, yeah, let me give that a try. That did not work. So I went and got a workout shirt that I don't ever wear. I dipped my hand in there, grabbed the the bird with the shirt, and threw it in the trash and took it down to the street.
Okay. I'm about to say, man, bird flu is a real thing, man.
I know. I was not I don't know if that's how you get it from dead birds in your toilet. But then I felt bad for the bird because what I think happened was when I was packing up the last time, I must have left the door open for an extended period of time, a few minutes. The bird flew in, perched somewhere, and then when I shut the door, nothing to eat. And it just, I guess, starved itself to death, or it maybe broke its neck trying to fly into the water. I don't know. Either way, dead bird.
We'll never know.
Crazy story. Let's talk football.
Let's talk football. Clarify yourself. The Travel Council 88 Noel grad says, per Corey, he said on Seminole Headlines, there's no returning quarterbacks on any roster that Florida State's going to play. So I agree that 7 wins has to be our absolute floor. And then people quickly started saying, well, what about Kate Klubnik? And then somebody says, what about DJ Lagway?
No, I said what I said on Headlines was I think other than Lagway, other than Florida, I meant to say Clemson. Obviously, I know Klubnik's coming back, but not. I was like, I don't know how many of the other teams have returning quarterbacks, but that's kind of the way of the world in college football, right? Like that's how many. What would you guess? Like, is it 20% of college football teams across the country return their quarterback from last year? Like, just start naming them, everyone. They're all gone. They're all leaving. The 2 guys playing tonight are gone. Miami's got a new one. Georgia's going to have a new one. Florida State has a new one. Alabama has a new one. Texas, like on and on and on and on. So
Ole
the
Miss.
point being, last year you started with, your first 3 games were against returning quarterbacks. And pretty good ones. Haynes King, when he's healthy, is good. The kid at Memphis, pretty good quarterback. Thomas Castellanos is now your quarterback. Yeah. So you started out with three returning quarterbacks this year. I could be wrong. I think the Cal kid left. I don't know if they play Cal. Stanford's quarterback left.
Correct.
I assume Wake's left. I assume they all leave. Then I'm like, and I haven't done a deep dive. It was just off the top of my head, and I think I even qualified it. Like, I haven't done any research on this. But I said Florida, other than Florida, and obviously Clemson is one. But I don't know about the other ones. You might have a schedule. And Kent State and Texas A&M Commerce don't count.
Correct,
so out of the 10 games you play that are actual, losable games, I would say 80% of the teams, 80%, I guess, maybe 70%, are going to have a new quarterback too.
Yeah,
including your opener. Yeah, including the opener.
Yeah, I think only Pitt and Virginia Tech I can say with any certainty, in addition to who you've mentioned already. Eli Holstein is going to be back for Pitt, and I think Drones is back for Virginia Tech.
Why didn't he play in the bowl game then?
I don't know. But he did tweet out. I looked at his social before he hopped on here. He tweeted out December 27th, which I don't know if that was before or after their bowl game.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'll be back.
Okay, well, see, I was assuming he wouldn't be one because and I hadn't. So they play Pitt next year?
Correct, yeah.
And they play Virginia Tech. Yeah, Drones.
Both at home.
Drones will be back, unless, we'll see what happens in April. Maybe he goes somewhere else too. But I think the bigger point is last year you started off with 3 teams with veteran quarterbacks. This year, the first returning quarterback you see is probably, I don't know what the schedule, I haven't looked at the schedule, like the timing of the schedule. Do we know yet?
We don't know yet. No, the ACC hasn't even said when they're going to drop it, but we know the teams obviously, but we just don't know the dates.
And we assume that Kent State and Texas A&M Commerce are
those are September. A&M Commerce, now East Texas or whatever. That's September.
Texas,
that's September 6th. Kent State is September 20th.
Okay.
So maybe ACC openers sandwiched between those games, or maybe a bye week.
I would think an opener probably in between the ACC opener in between that. But yeah, so the point I think the better point is not that they play 7 new quarterbacks or 6 new quarterbacks. They don't start the season with 3 in a row. Like, again, I think all 3 of those games they got worse quarterback play than their opponents, and that's it's football. It's a big reason you lose. The Washington Commanders. It's not. I
feel bad for Detroit. Let's not talk about.
Oh, I do too, man. I feel awful for Detroit. I was actually at a watch party on Saturday night with a big Detroit fan, and he's also a Michigan fan, so I don't feel that bad for him. But it's like, yeah, man, they just crazily Washington had the better quarterback. And somebody was like, I have a friend that's a Cowboys fan, and he's like, yeah, man, and the Cowboys could have had Dan Quinn a couple years ago. It's like, yeah, but if Dan Quinn doesn't have Jaden Daniels with him, whoop-de-doo. Dan Quinn looks great now because he's got Jaden Daniels. Yeah. It's just amazing what a quarterback can do. It is absolute. It shouldn't be amazing anymore. We've seen it for decades upon decades. But man, you get a good quarterback, you get good quarterback play, it changes everything. And Daniels might be a guy that we're going to be so sick of the Commanders winning in 5 years. Like, enough with the Jane Daniels, enough with all this Commanders talk, all this Washington love. And they haven't been relevant in 3 decades. Yeah. And now they're in the NFC Championship game.
Imagine if you're a Bears fan.
They've never had a quarterback.
Yeah.
Literally ever. Have they? I mean, I think Rex Grossman might have gotten himself to a Pro Bowl because other people backed out. Yeah. But have they ever had an elite quarterback or just a top? I mean, Jim McMahon was okay.
Not since my guy Sid Luckman, you know.
Right. They didn't win because of Jim McMahon.
Correct.
So it's like, man, they have never. It's crazy to strike out 50 years in a row. Or just not have elite at that position. Yeah. Like the Falcons had Matt Ryan for a few years where he was one of the best in the game. I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer or one of the best that ever played, but for a stretch there, he was one of the best in the league.
Yeah,
so at least we had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael Vick was something incredible when he got into the league. So the Falcons have had some quarterback, and now obviously Penix is probably the best player in the league. So we got that going for us. But yeah, man, imagine just never having that kind of quarterback. So maybe Caleb Williams is the guy, but he ain't Jane Daniels.
No.
That guy is incredible.
I should have looked into who the quarterbacks were before and after Gus arrived at his previous stops, but somebody had asked on the Tribal Council last week, Corey, and I went ahead and posted on the Renegade Room, which that's the gold membership part of the warchant.com experience, but you get like 15 or 20% off at Garnet and Gold, not just 10%. You get access to the Renegade Room. You also get no ads at all on your screen ever.
Right.
And they asked about,
one other thing that I'm going to go ahead and publicize here. We're going to start doing a 30-minute Seminole Headlines bonus.
Ooh.
That is only for the Renegade.
Ooh.
So just throwing that out there, gang. Throwing that out there. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. But yeah, throwing that out there. That's going to be might start. I think it starts this week.
Okay.
Will be our maiden voyage in the Renegade Room with I think it'll be like 20 or 30-minute headline.
You going to try to drill down and keep it like ball-centric, or is it just going to be freewheeling per usual, and it might just be 20 minutes of you guys talking about being dads?
We haven't decided on that yet.
Okay.
I definitely don't think our first one will be us talking about dads and dead birds.
Okay.
I feel like it'll be much more Florida State football-centric, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So somebody asked about how Gus fared in his first season compared to how the teams were before he arrived. So I didn't bother to do the numbers on when he arrived at Arkansas State as the head coach, but I went and looked back at what Arkansas was before he arrived as their OC, how Tulsa was before he arrived as their OC, Auburn as their OC, then Auburn as the head coach, and then this past time at UCF. So of those 5 instances, twice you could say he pretty much inherited train wrecks of offenses. And that was both times he was at Auburn. The 2008 and 2012 Auburn offenses were absolutely horrendous. He took over just a middling offense at Arkansas. And then Tulsa was pretty good. Tulsa was pretty good. Then UCF was incredible before he arrived. UCF was the number 2 total offense in the country, the number 8 scoring offense in the country, the number 25 rushing offense.
When was that? 19?
2020. COVID. Well, that's COVID year, I guess, so maybe really doesn't
I thought that
count.
Was his first year at UCF.
No, 21. 21 was his first year at UCF. He was there for 4 years. So
who coached him in 2020? Oh, Heupel.
Yeah, the Heupel guy.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
So, without further ado, this is not great podcasting because it's so many numbers being thrown at everybody, but I guess I'll just kind of maybe underscore. So when he got to Arkansas was in the 60s in total offense and scoring offense, 12th in rushing. Well, he moved them to 29th in total offense, 31st in scoring, and moved them all the way up to 4th in the country in rushing. Tulsa.
What year was that?
That was 2006.
So that was the year didn't they not make the SEC championship game that year and lost to Florida? Lost to that championship Florida team, I think.
Oh, that sounds right.
I think I was there. I think I was at the Gwinnett Daily Post at the time covering it. And Arkansas was in the game and really had a chance to take the lead, and this kid fumbled the punt. I'll never forget it. He fumbled the punt. I think it was a tie game, or Arkansas was only down 3, and then it just got away from them. Yeah. But they were right in the game, and they had some real players on that team.
I think that's when they had. I think it was D-Mac and Felix Jones.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So 4th rushing offense. He's done from 12th to 4th. So That's hard to move anybody up from 12th, so that's a shout out. Then he gets to Tulsa the next year because Houston Nutt felt very insecure about how good this upstart offensive coordinator had been. So he kind of pushes them out. He goes to Tulsa, and he turns them into the number one total offense in the nation. They had 402 yards per game the year before he arrived. He put that up to 543. So they moved from 39th to first.
Yeah, that's in. There has to be some context here that back then, what he runs now was not all that common back then, right? Like there was maybe 5% of the offenses in the country did what he was doing. Now it's probably 95%. So it's probably harder but just because defenses they had never seen what he was doing. So they were just overwhelmed schematically, and then obviously he started to get good players too. But I think they were just overwhelmed schematically and by the tempo that they just, especially at that level, they couldn't handle it. And they were. I remember I brought this up before, but Florida State was really close in 2013 to having 3 1,000-yard rushers and a 1,000-yard or 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. And the last team to have done that was Tulsa, and I think Tulsa was the only team that had ever done that. To have 3 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher on the same team. That Tulsa team was the only one. They might still be the only one.
I think Mike mentioned that. Mike mentioned that, I think, on his,
And I remember looking it up because I was like, man, how many times is a team? Because Kenny Shaw, I think Rashad got over it, or maybe Kelvin, one of them passed the 1,000-yard mark
in
the Auburn game, and Kenny Shaw came up like 20 yards short of being a 1,000-yard receiver. But going into that game, I looked up that because I looked that up because it was so close to happening. And I'm like, has this ever happened? And yeah, it was that Tulsa team from like 6 years ago, 6 years before that.
Yeah, it was KB. He ended up with 1,011 yards on the season. So, and what did he get in the championship game? Stand by.
I'm 54. 50. Oh, okay.
4 for 54, and not inconsequential touchdown.
I was going to say a pretty big one there at the end.
Yeah. All right, so at Arkansas, they increase their scoring offense by 3 points per game. At Tulsa, he pushes them from 33 points per game to 41, so 8-point difference. That's awesome. Auburn, horrendous before he and Cam Newton get things rolling. Although it was a year before Cam. He gets there in 2009. Cam was 2010. But
yeah, what did they do in 2009? I think that might be the best comparison you're going to make because, there's probably not another Cam Newton coming down the pipe. So what did they do from 2008 to 2009 before Cam Newton?
Okay, so he increased their yards per game by 130 yards.
From 2008 to 2009?
Yes. So they went from 104th in total offense to 16th.
Wow.
303 yards per game to 431.
Okay, Gus.
Scoring offense, 16 points. They went from 110th, averaging 17.3 points per game, to 17th, averaging 33.3. And the rushing offense went from 69th to 13th. He increased them about a little bit more than 80 yards per game on the ground.
Wow.
1 year.
Okay.
1 year.
And not even the Cam year, because people can't point and say, well, Cam Newton, that wasn't even Cam Newton at the time. Wow, okay, Gus.
No. I don't have 2010 in front of me. I apologize.
It's fine. No, who cares? They were really good. They won the national championship, went undefeated.
Yeah. 2012, they were horrendous. I think they went 3-9. They might have gone winless in SEC play. He increases their
Remind people that he left and became the head coach at Arkansas State.
Correct.
So people are going to be like, well, why did he have a horrendous offense in 2012? He wasn't there. He had left.
That's right. I don't know who the OC was, but that was like Chiswick's last year.
Yes.
So he takes them from 115th in total offense to 11th. They went from 305 yards to 501 yards per game. I don't remember who their quarterback was in 12, but I know it wasn't anybody nearly as dynamic as Nick Marshall, which we could probably say Thomas Castellanos was a little bit more dynamic than what they had last year. Scoring offense. He moves them up 100 spots. 18.7 points per game to 39.5. They went from 112th to 12th in the country. And probably the most impressive stat, their rushing offense goes from 78th to number 1 in the country. They go from 148 yards per game to 328 yards per game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So. All right, Aslan. Okay. Good. Good research.
Yeah, UCF, we don't got to jump into it because, UCF, they kind of were hitting their heads on a ceiling. They were second in total offense, again, 8th in scoring offense. They dropped to 66th
it wasn't really
and 37th.
Anywhere to go. Yeah.
So I guess all that to say, don't want to put too unrealistic expectations, but again, when you maybe I know we said 2009 probably is the better one to do because he didn't have anybody, he did not have a special transcendent talent like Cam Newton, but I don't think Nick Marshall is either. But I also don't want to say that they're going to go to be the number one rushing offense in the country. But in terms of like where they were and kind of a big reset of what he did with what they were in 13, you just see how much they moved up there. So I know we're going to talk about defense. We want to see more physicality and we want to see more attacking. We don't want to see this passive. Everything is going to come down to this offense and what he can do, and he can work miracles more or less. So I don't know. I'm starting to kind of think when you just think about all these new offensive linemen, Deuce Robinson, what they can be running the ball with some new fresh legs and some freshmen. Maybe Cam Davis steps up. Maybe Cromaw's the truth. That's really the question mark. We'll see how the rushing offense is really going to fare. And one thing I do think about the offensive line too is that some of the guys they did get came from good programs, but they necessarily weren't performing at a high level. So how much of that is him taking stock, him and Herb Hand, of like what they had here at Florida State and like, this is not acceptable. We just need to get acceptable, adequate talent. They might not have nearly, the Greg Robinson guy, I think, was like their starting left tackle that was like an NFL top 5 pick in 2013. So they're not going to have that maybe high level talent on the offensive line, but surely enough to where they're going to make huge jumps, which, I know everybody's expecting, but just want to give you some numbers and data behind that, everybody. So
and I think that it's fair. There's two sides of the coin. The first side is like I was talking about earlier. I do think you could point to like his first year at Tulsa, his first year at Auburn as the OC, and really his first year at Auburn as the head coach a couple years later as this kind of offense, the spread, up-tempo, it was starting to catch on. It was starting to become more commonplace, but Nick Saban still hadn't switched to it. There were still other – Jimbo certainly hadn't switched to any fast-tempo offense and never did. But it was slowly matriculating across the country. It was slowly infesting the rest of the country that offenses started to become this. But back then – it wasn't commonplace. So you could see, for instance, when you went to I don't even know how to term it, like just a unique offense, that it would give defenses problems because they weren't used to seeing it. Like imagine putting the 2024 Georgia Tech offense, spread out, mobile quarterback who didn't mind running, speed sweeps, really up tempo or could be up tempo at times, into the 1960s. Haynes King would have won 3 Heismans in a row. Like they just because defensive coordinators hadn't seen that. Now, 2009 wasn't that long ago, but it was long ago enough to know that the country's football schemes and coordinators weren't like they are now. There has been an evolution.
That was Mickey's last year, by the way, right? 2009, right. Mickey.
Exactly right. So so there has been an evolution. So it might not be as easy when you bring in a new offense. And it's kind of a similar offense, but a new offense with a new coordinator, to make a huge jump like that, knowing that all these defenses are used to seeing it. This won't be the first time they've seen a Gus Malzahn type offense. The flip side of that is, back when he was making – so it could be easier to make leaps back then perhaps, but the flip side of that is, back then in 09 and 07 and 12, you couldn't go and just hand-pick who you wanted to be on your roster that were at other colleges. And say, that's the guy I want, that's the guy I want, this guy will make us good, this guy, that's the quarterback I want. This is like, you had to work with what you had and get freshmen. There was no portal. So he had to go do what he did with guys that were already on the roster that were used to playing another offense. So imagine how much easier it is now when you're trying to rebuild or trying to completely revamp, that you get to kind of handpick your roster. Not handpick as any you got the first choice everywhere he went, but he went and got guys that he knows or believes can fit into what he's trying to do. That's a huge advantage that he did not have in 09 and 07. So that was those were the context I wanted to add. Is it's maybe he doesn't make a leap of 130 yards per game, although he better, because this thing was a joke last year, and they averaged 15 or 16 points per game. He needs to double that. So it might not be as easy as just what he did in 07 because of the fact that the game has changed. But also, rosters can change overnight. So that does make it a little easier than it was at Tulsa and Auburn. So it'll be interesting to see which side ends up winning out. I don't expect him to go from 133rd in the country in total offense to top 20. But You guys all listen to that number, and you know who's coming back. You know the talent they've gotten on offense. It's not maybe incredible NFL talent, but it is a significant upgrade. And I think you have a significant upgrade at offensive coordinator and O-line coach because they've shown they can do it in the past at different schools. I don't think it's outlandish to think that they can double their scoring average. It still makes them average, by the way, right? I can't remember what they averaged this year, 16, 17, whatever it was. But they should be able to add 2 touchdowns a game to that. And if they do that, which they should, you're looking at a bowl game at the very least, I think.
Well, let's hope more than just a bowl game. That's what we want to be in the thick of it in November. We want to be playing games in November and scoreboard watching and hoping, rooting for this team to lose so we can move up a couple spots. That's what I'm.
But you're not wrong about it's all about the offense, and it isn't. Yeah. Obviously, it's 2 sides of the ball, and this coach cares a lot about special teams too. But the reason they were 2-10 and had the worst season they've ever had, in my opinion. I know there's been worse seasons, but considering the expectations and everything else, it's the worst. I think it's the worst season in Florida State football history because the offense was a disaster. I mean, literally, it was the worst offense in the United States. They scored 19 touchdowns, folks. In 12 games, they scored 19 touchdowns.
15.4 points per game, 130th in scoring offense.
Yeah, and but the touchdowns are the least in the country. Yeah. That's incredible. It's impossible. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. This guy needs to at least. I mean, again, it's not going to be that hard to double it. At least double it. But that's embarrassing. Even with the Charleston Southern sprinkled in, you average 15 points per game. Against a Division I opponent, you never scored more than 20 points, right?
He scored 21 against Georgia Tech.
I apologize. And that included a 59-yard field goal.
and a swinging gate extra point, 2-point conversion on the first.
He knew what he had to get to 20. That was the magic number. That's right. So, they were just awful all year. They're not going to be awful this year. That should give you guys hope. This guy, he just doesn't do awful. He doesn't do awful. He usually does great. At worst, he's pretty good to decent. That's at worst. This guy does not have awful offenses. So that's exciting. And those numbers should excite people.
What should excite you is the national championship tonight. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Go check it out over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. If you don't feel like waiting until tonight to be hanging around awesome people and having delicious food, then go check out their delicious lunch specials on Monday. Half-pound Black Angus beef burger, only $8.99 from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. with a side dish of your choice. If you don't want to eat, if you like cooking at home, maybe you're doing resolutions and such, but you still want to come out and socialize, you can always do that. Tuesday night, trivia night, 7 p.m. sharp. Come on out, compete, have some good times. Thursday night, bingo night, 4 rounds, $250 cold hard cash up for grabs in each single round. It's always there for you every single week, unless there's like a holiday, which we've gone through all the holidays so far. The Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, cptallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Triumphant return to trivia Tuesday for you, Corey?
Oh, yeah, buddy. And I'll probably be there tonight watching the national championship game. And then I guess we'll be dodging snow on I think it's supposed to come in Tuesday night at this point. So they've already canceled school on Wednesday.
In Tallahassee?
In Leon County, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm hoping – I mean, beggars can't be choosers. Hopefully we don't get player interviews on Tuesday because I don't want to drive. I'm fine driving in this. I'm sorry. I don't trust the rest of you. I don't trust
there you go.
The nice. Audio. I'm fine. I've driven through
But I think it's supposed to be overnight Tuesday into Wednesday.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be getting interviews then anyway.
Okay. All right. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Simulcast, everybody. This will be part of the Wake Up Warchant podcast. So if you're hoping to get done with this and then listen to the Wake Up Warchant podcast and get more from Michael Langston, well, sorry, this is all you're going to get. It's a standalone video on YouTube, though, but you're going to get a lot out of Michael. He's been very busy this weekend, along with Matt Lasser, after another junior day before we get diving into that small gesture that we ask of people watching this video or listening to the podcast, Michael.
Man. Hit the like button for us, please. It always helps. I say this many times, but I can't stress enough. Helps us promote all these great features that we do, not just for recruiting, which is good right now, but, team stuff. You got spring football coming up. There's so much stuff going on. You got a new staff. I'm sure there's going to be new interviews of the new players that are coming into the program. So you just want to hit the like button. These are features that are freaking awesome.
There we go. All right. So busy weekend for you and Matt and everybody on the beat doing this thing. I know when we talk about the 25 roster, defensive line is still a position of need for a lot of people. When we talk about junior day, we're talking about guys in what, the 27 class mostly, and
26,
things
27, yeah.
Yeah. So let's start off, I guess, with defensive line. Michael, are you seeing anything from this staff or anything that you felt differently about what they're looking for, what they're going after when it comes to defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, me and Matt kind of talked about this. There's a different energy. That's the way the recruits, we're hearing the stuff from the recruits being around these new staff, especially Terrence Knighton, pot roast, as they call him. Really, and I even saw it for myself in a small sample of just, his interaction with kids when they first meet. Like James Johnson was there, a defensive lineman that I had figured, you would have thought that he'd known James Johnson for a long time, and there wasn't a previous relationship, but it was just a connection there that we haven't seen that kind of stuff. And I saw that across the board, even with Coach JP at linebackers, even though he coached defensive ends. It was a connection that we weren't seeing, a year ago with a lot of these guys. James Johnson's one that came in there is from North Fort Myers. Really good connection. FSU, Miami, Florida are the main teams. And I feel FSU is, kind of sees the momentum some with this visit. Just my takeaway from really what I saw with the new staff was, these two new additions in Terrence Knighton and Tony White have been extraordinary so far, of just the way they're able to connect with players and the way they're able to illustrate even on the visits when they get on there, when they watch their film together, and just there's a connection of teaching that's there that I'm not saying that wasn't there previously. I'm just saying it's more highlighted with these guys, and I think that was kind of my main takeaway of just what they've done, from the defensive line. You also had Xavion Griffin Hayes, another one that's a 4-star defensive end. I think he's out of the North Carolina area that I'll have a feature on, that really resonated with Knighton, and you heard that a lot, with every guy of, heard the words development and also just connectability as far as a coach that, hey, that's a guy that I could see myself playing for. That was mentioned, like, probably 3 or 4 different prospects would say that. So I think overall the defensive line, I think certainly they made a really strong splash as far as making a first impression, because did a feature earlier this week with Tom Lang and, kind of talked about that I wanted to see what this staff does of what how the message is going to be reciprocated from the player to the coach and after the visit. And you could tell there was a lot of genuine interest and genuine connection, because relationships is still a big part. Another guy that you had in there, Trenton Henderson, who I think FSU leads for. He's out of Pensacola Catholic, in-state kid that really said, hey, Mike, this was the best visit I've had to FSU. And I think a lot of that is the juice that Tony White and Terrence Knighton bring. And then you had other places like with Evan Cooper, the new staff, that he did a great job of just connecting with these defensive backs they had in there that we'll talk about later. But I think Trenton Henderson was one that I think grew up a big FSU fan, but there needs to be something outside of that, to connect you to FSU. And I think he can connect with, the way Knighton teaches, the way Tony White's going to run his schemes and defense. And I think with all these defensive linemen, I think certainly they made a big jump.
I can't find like the right adjective to use, maybe even verb, Michael, but it just feels like when you're like a guy like Tony White, a guy like Terrence Knighton, Evan Turner mentioned how important it is for him to cultivate real relationships. And listen, like every staff wants to do that, but it just feels like there might be a little bit more, I don't want to say emphasis again. The right word is escaping me, but listen, NIL is going to be a big part of everything for everybody.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you need to be able to have guys on your staff that can identify kids, be able to like look at this kid in the eye, talk to them, get the feel, get the sense that when this kid says, I'm committed to you, all right, we're not going to have to panic about you 2 days before signing day. We might have to hold on a little bit. We know that might be a little rocky landing here, but it just feels like there's a level of kind of understanding the way this business works and the way relationships have to be kind of forged and maintained, how important they are in keeping these kids committed throughout the process. Because Florida State's had really talented guys on campus on junior days. They've had really talented guys committed over the summer. But, man, when it comes down to November and December, things start eluding them. And it feels like maybe there's a different kind of energy and vibe to it this time around.
Yeah, that's appropriate. I would say the word juice is what I would
Okay.
use. There's an extra juice with these staff that, as I said at the outset, like me and Matt, and especially me, and I've been around a lot, like 23 years. I've seen a lot of junior days. This energy felt different, just on just the way just the reactions we were getting from the visits and just in general of the specifics of what they're bringing and the energy and yeah, you have a head coach. We know Mike Norvell looks like he's always on Red Bull, all that stuff, but that's great and that's fun. But there needs to be something with the position, and I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of these junior day visits.
All right. Any last notes quickly on the defensive line? James Johnson, again, he's the number 14th defensive lineman in this class. Composite 4-star out of North Fort Myers. Xavion Griffin-Hayes, he's an edge, 6'6", 220. Another consensus 4-star, number 17 edge guy on this cycle. And then the last guy you talked about, Trent Henderson out of Pensacola Catholic, 6'4", 225. Number 4 edge guy in the country. So, I mean, obviously some elite guys. Those three guys you expect to kind of be in the mix once, it really starts hitting nitty-gritty time when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, I think they'll be very involved and very active. A few of those I think they probably hold the momentum with Trenton Henderson and even James Johnson. I feel like there's some movement there. You feel like, you know what, the worst, FSU is going to be a major player here. And then with the other one, it's kind of a wait and see because it's the first meeting and you want to see what the follow-up visit's going to be like with a guy like Xavion Griffin-Hayes. You want to see what this follow-up visit's going to be. But I think overall, first impressions, these are guys that, certainly I feel like FSU is going to be a threat for.
All right, let's move to linebacker, Michael. Groundhog Day, linebackers. Everybody wants linebackers, elite linebackers. Were there elite linebackers, in your estimation, on campus this past weekend?
Yes, there were. One of the top guys is Xavion Griffin. That was one where he's committed to USC, I think number 2 linebacker in the whole country. Really wanted to see what Tony White did, with their program, with the linebackers. For their presentation was very specific. And 2, you're switching JP over there to the offside linebacker position, which I think is a really good move because that's his natural position. That's naturally where he's coached most of his college career when he coached at Maryland and North Carolina and those places. That was the place that he's natural in. He's shown to be a good recruiter, and it showed a lot, throughout the weekend. I think really heard a lot of positive things about, from him, Griffin and then other guys, as far as just the connection with them. I think overall, I think he's committed to USC, but I think FSU is probably the biggest threat, I would say, right now, that there's a connection that he was kind of looking for. But I think with Griffin, it was more, seeing a specific scheme of what they're going to do with linebackers, because as we know, FSU last year was running like basically 2 linebackers out there. So linebacker didn't feel like a pivotal, like where they use a lot of guys, where I think this group, you're going to see a lot more, which kind of tells you why, they got so many from the portal. I think the fact that they really load up on that and then have a lot of young guys, I think overall, this is one where I think FSU wanted to really address this position in 2026, maybe get like 2 or 3 in this high school class. I think it's a difference of how we're used to what the previous staff was with the linebacker recruiting and the way they're going to utilize them. I think you'll see the linebackers utilize blitzing and off the edge a lot more, and then you'll have your natural tackling in space and all that stuff. But I think overall it's going to be certainly a different adjustment to fans watching, I think, linebacker. But I think overall it's definitely a place where, hey, you know what, this could be a place where we think they could do pretty good. So I think you have him. You also have Isaiah Williams, previously committed to FSU, 4-star linebacker out of Tavares, Florida. Got a chance to be back on campus. You'll usually see a kid that decommitted and then all of a sudden, bam, he's back that quickly. I think what happened there was the disconnect was he had all these changes going on, didn't really know a lot what was going on. I didn't feel like they prioritized him even when he was committed, like they should have at that time. I think that's certainly happening with JP and certainly Tony White, who has linebacker experience in his resume. So I think that really helped them a lot, him being around, Coach White and Coach JP to kind of see kind of what their principles are, and certainly one that I feel like they can certainly reel back in, because it just feels like he wants to be there. He just wants to see the system, and probably wants to see it like in person, in action of how it looks. I think if it looks great, he's a guy that I think you could see back in the fold. So I think Florida's certainly in there. I think there's going to be a lot of other schools. Alabama will be in there. Georgia probably, we'll see some action there. But I think he's a guy that they felt like was vital. They got him back on campus, and they got him in there, and they did a really good job of just him connecting back with this one, with Coach JP, and then two, just a connection that was kind of what we've talked about, where it's unique and special, and one that's connected, that it's really working. I think certainly you saw that this weekend with Zay.
Real quickly for the visual audience here on the YouTube, I just want to make sure I get the right profile up when you were talking about Griffin. You were talking about Xavier Griffin, not to be confused with Xavion Griffin Hayes. So
that was tried doing that at the junior day.
Yeah. So as you said right there, number 2 linebacker, Southern Cal commit. The USC's try to come into the Southeast and get guys, and they usually don't stick with it. So hopefully that's something that'll turn in Florida State's favors as this recruiting cycle goes even further and further. Let's stick with the defense. Let's talk about things on the back end. Obviously, Patrick Surtain's still here, still a big part of what draws a lot of players to Florida State. What'd you see out of defensive back prospects that's got you excited, Michael?
Whew, man, there was a lot. I think the connection with Evan Cooper and him is really going to be good. Evan has a lot of strong capabilities, strong history, especially in that South Florida area. He recruits very well, and I do like his development when you watch a lot of his safeties. We saw that with Dorian Barney, who visited over the weekend, a 4-star DB. It's a safety type. He likes him a lot. Lasiah Jackson, he's one from Lee County. Yes, that's the same school as Usman Chromo. They're really tight. I think they certainly have the edge, in my opinion, with Lasiah, who's a 4-star DB. And then probably the crown jewel of the guy was Samari Matthews over there out of North Carolina, that they certainly love. More so focusing back on Lasiah Jackson, really rangy safety, does a lot of special things as far as in the passing game. Really just starting this recruiting process was kind of cool, because we were like, he's like, this is the first interview I've ever done, and Lasiah's watching. You did great, but he was phenomenal. Rear rangy guy. Spent a lot of time with Surtain, probably more with Surtain than maybe Evan Cooper, but I think overall a guy that they're very high on, one that they're pushing hard for, and one I think they set the tone in the recruitment where, going to FSU is kind of different than a lot of places. It's very personal, where Norvell tells you a lot of things he doesn't like and a lot of things that he does like, where in most cases you're trying to win them over. You're trying to get your foot in the door. And Norvell likes to lay down like, hey, this is what we are. This is what I expect from my players. This is what I want. And not so it's not fantasy land when you come in. So every visit, they want to make sure they make it clear of their intentions, and really relationships is a big deal. And I think they really, nailed it with a guy like Lasiah Jackson. So you have him. And then, like I said, the crown jewel for me is Samari Matthews, because he's one of the top cornerbacks in the country. I think our own Matt Lasser did an article. He put FSU now released the top 3, which we hadn't heard that before. Usually he's been in the 5-6 range. So the fact that you're narrowing down to a top 3 right after you're taking an FSU visit is certainly not a bad sign. A lot of strong ties to Surtain, and that's been the draw. But I think this weekend for me was about his interaction with not just more Evan Cooper, even Evan's not his position. It's just being around these new guys, and definitely being around a guy like Tony White. I think that's the most beneficial part, because that's the guy that's going to be running the defense. He wants to see what you're going to do with a cornerback like him, a talented cornerback. We've seen what they do development-wise in that Nebraska system, with what his system is and how they utilize a cornerback, where they do a lot of, physical tackling, a lot of stuff where they come up and hit and strike, and also have the coverage stuff where they take advantage and try to take away things that are just exploit big plays. So I think they did a really good job selling that throughout the weekend to Samari, and certainly I think that, like I said, that group with Evan and I think with Surtain is going to be really good, because you get 2, I think, really sound technicians from what I've heard of both their backgrounds and how they've come about in the coaching industry. So I think over this weekend, I think they set a good, I guess, setting point as far as what they're going to do recruiting wise.
Again, as Michael mentioned, Matthews, number 4 cornerback in this cycle, 6 foot 180. Certainly has some really good film. Great little photo there with Norvell. Look at Mike. Mike looks really relaxed this past weekend. Good for him, man.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a huge need. They want to keep continuing to bring in guys from the high school level that can be developed and be very productive cornerbacks, defensive backs for them. Let's go to offense, Michael. Running back, a position that feels like as long as Gus Malzahn is going to be here with Mike Norvell, they're going to always be on the lookout for absolute alpha dogs to be at that spot. Was there anybody that fits the kind of bill for you this past weekend?
Yeah, definitely Amari Clemens. He's from Mariana. Shout out, that's where my grandparents were from. So, even though they're no longer here, but that was where they're from. But Amari's an explosive, dynamic back. Does a lot of different things. Can pick up blocks. His main attraction is his speed. He's just a game breaker. He does a lot of different things. He was at FSU earlier in January for a junior day visit. So he's come over here a lot. It's going to come back, Aslan, again next weekend with his mom, which I think is a big development in this recruitment. I think it's not out of the question that you see him possibly pop, even though he would like to take visits to like Miami and Alabama and different other places. I think FSU has set the tone. I think South Carolina is a team that I've heard the most as far as competition, but overall, this is a guy that they've targeted from the start. He's camped at FSU last year, even there for multiple days working with Coach Yak. And to your point, I think this, and I'll say this, and I think people can read it in between my recruiting wrap I did last night. I think the combination of Gus and Yak there makes this a really strong position, because we know what Gus does with running backs. He's had a history of certainly helping develop them in with their system, in the system of a running back, and this really fits that system. And I've had several kids tell me, including Mari's told me this before, like he's one of the GOATs. He's one of the greatest as far as what he does with offenses and running backs in it. So I think that is giving them a lot of juice with the running back position. We know, David Johnson's done a great job of getting guys in there, and now they have somebody that knows how to put it together and really, showcase these running backs. And I think Amari Clemens, one they lead for, probably. I would not shock me if he committed next weekend. He would be on my commit watch, but I think at the very least they're in very good position there.
All right. What about tight end? Tight end. What about a guy that's committed to a team that's still playing football? That matters a lot right now. But he's in Florida State's backyard rather than the Buckeyes. Yeah,
Corbin Fordham out of Jacksonville Bowls. Dad in offensive line for FSU is a legacy, and Todd Fordham. Certainly, Corbin's very familiar with FSU. He's been over there, quite a few times. This was not expected, though. This visit, I actually got a tip that morning, or junior day, Saturday morning early, that hey, this guy's going to be on campus. Keep an eye on, and he was like laid back of kind of keeping his way away from, I guess, attention, so to speak. But it was certainly one where he likes Thompson a lot. Chris Thompson, the tight ends coach at FSU. And I think he wanted to learn more about what Gus is going to do with the tight ends in this offense, how they're going to implement them. And I think that was certainly a strong selling point. And my take on just with Corbin, I think, and this is kind of with a lot of offensive prospects, is like, if this Gus offense works, they're going to be a strong factor for a lot of guys that are committed to other places, because kids are going to just connect to this program. I've said it before, when FSU is good on the football field, it's not good for other teams, but it's good for the state of college football. And if their offense is good and shows some explosive numbers with Thomas at quarterback and all the other weapons they've added, I think this is a guy that dramatically, I think, affects a guy like Corbin Fordham, who is looking for an offense that, can fit kind of his skill set of what he does. Very good at getting open in routes, as you see, a lot of these clips where he finds space really well. And we kind of see that already with, Landon Thomas. I think that's a big benefit of having a freshman that's already done something, but also adding an extra piece with Gus and what he's going to do with the offense, I think, adding more credentials to that offense and wrinkles and more explosive plays. I think if the offense is good, this is a guy that definitely you should keep your eye on.
Well, shoot, we just spoke for like 21 minutes about everything. And believe it or not, we did not even cover an eighth of the level of people that were on campus that both Michael and Matt were able to catch up with. So much more coming over on the PRB, I assume, Michael. And I don't like putting you in the corner on these sort of things, but what are we thinking? Like commit watch, like over under 2.5 guys by the end of the month?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It's kind of hard to position like what commits are going to happen in junior days because it's not like other places where you have unofficial visits and the process is just starting for a lot of these guys. So I think 2 or 3 is very possible.
It's the dawn of a new year. Let us manifest abundance. Or let us live on Earth and take a more measured approach. Do you know that 85% of us have at least one subscription going unused each month? Yeah, I'm included. Imagine paying $50 at the pump and getting no gas. Imagine dropping $20 on lunch and getting no food. Yeah. Let's get our affairs in order with Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel our unwanted subscriptions, plus it monitors our spending. This can help lower expenses and lets us grow our savings. Let's max out those 401ks and IRAs. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all your accounts, allowing you to see all your subscriptions in one place and let you know exactly where your money's going. And for the subscriptions you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can even help you cancel them. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/game-on. That's rocketmoney.com/game-on. rocketmoney.com/game-on. Visit today. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it. New numbers, Corey. This has always excited me when I was a younger man. New numbers for players. Edwin Joseph's going to drop one of the threes. He's going to be number 3 now.
Okay, that's a cool number. I like that.
Roy Dell's going to be 5.
What was he?
24.
Sorry, Roy Dell. I forgot.
Well, we didn't see him for about 2 months.
We didn't get to see you a lot, Roy Dell. Yeah.
Loane McCoy will be 7. BJ Gibson going 10.
Okay.
Jabril Rawls 11. That's real good. 30 is just a weird number for a DB. So
yeah, 30 is just a weird number. Period.
Yeah.
There haven't been a lot of great 30s out there.
Yeah, I think. Deuce Robinson's going to be wearing number 2.
That makes sense.
Kidding.
Wait, is he really?
No, kidding.
No, he's not.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay.
Shout out, by the way, to Speed Kills on the boards for having all this listed out. He'll be number 0.
Oh, all right.
0 on a 6'5" kid?
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
It's going to be unique.
Castellanos, man, he's wearing number 1.
Yeah, that's his number.
It is.
It's confident. People that wear number 1 are very typically very confident.
Yeah. Bring back the greatness that Corey Surrency brought to that number for us.
Amen. And Kelvin Benjamin ruined Surrency and Fred Rouse's legacy by actually going and making plays.
Did Kentron wear 1? Was Kentron 1?
He might have been. Was he?
I don't know. Squirrel White's going to be 4.
I like that number. Yeah, that's a good number.
On a speedster. Stephon Thompson, the linebacker that's been lots of places, very productive, 7. Deontay McCray, the edge guy from Western Kentucky, 8.
They all went to single digits,
They do. You got to be a dude, though. I don't know if Norvell's got dude, barometer you got to pass. James Williams is going to wear the number 10.
Okay.
That's fierce. I like that. Gunnar Hansen and Kevin Winter both going to wear 55.
All right. Okay.
I think didn't we have a 55 last year? Yeah, Jane Parrish wore 55, which wasn't Marvin Jones 55?
Senior, yeah. Come on, Aslan. Yeah, it's a very famous. He famously wore that number.
Well, I'm just saying, we're just letting anybody. Jaden Parrish wore it last year. Never got.
Well, I'm saying it's for the people that don't understand. Like Marvin Jones has had his jersey retired, but they don't retire the number.
Right.
Because if they retired all these numbers, it would just be a bunch of guys wearing 71. Because, number 9 would be gone. Number 5 would be gone. Like all these numbers,
16,
4, 16, 17.
Yeah.
I think actually 17 is retired.
Oh, yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
And 2 is retired. Bolitnikov is retired, so that's 25, and 34 Ron Sellers are retired.
Sorry.
Those are the only ones. And then they realized, well, golly, if we keep doing this, we're going to run out. So they decided to stop retiring numbers and just retire jerseys. But you know what? If Deuce Robinson wanted to wear number 2, I'd be like, you know what, Deuce? Go for it, big dog. Sure. Because I can tell you whose jersey would have been retired if they had actually come here is Travis effing Hunter. So, okay, Dion, awesome. 2's back in rotation. Your number's still up there. Your jersey's retired, but the number is back in rotation.
Thoughts on the legal sphere of things when it comes to college athletics, Corey? Xavier Lucas from South Florida went to, I think, American Heritage High School, started as a freshman this past year at Wisconsin, had asked to be let into the transfer portal. He filled out his paperwork, but Wisconsin never processed it. They did not allow him to go to the transfer portal. So he's like, all right, well, I'm just going to leave then. I'm leaving. I've gone ahead and enrolled at the University of Miami. Well, over the weekend, apparently the University of Wisconsin released a statement and saying that they did not release him because there was credible information indicating that the University of Miami had tampered with our player. He signed an NIL agreement, a 2-year binding NIL agreement with their collective, the Varsity Collective, and it's their understanding that it was executed and you got to agree and follow the rules on this sort of stuff. So the Big Ten even came behind this and supported them and called out the University of Miami as well and said that, again, student athletes have become active participants in revenue sharing. It is critical that these agreed-to obligations be respected, honored, and enforced. So,
well, I want to clarify something real quick. You don't have to ask your school to go into the transfer portal. You can just go. He was already enrolled at Wisconsin. He had stayed
because he signed that.
But he had stayed. Like he was in classes. He was enrolled. He did not put his name in the portal. He was enrolled. And then their claim is that Miami reached out to him while he was already enrolled and not in the portal, and he never entered the portal.
Right.
He just went from Wisconsin to Miami without ever officially entering the portal, and that's their claim that's why he was tampered with. It wasn't like he was out there for people to make runs at. He just happened to get an offer from Miami and decided he's going to Miami. So, look, here the next evolution in this, if it never gets – I mean, who knows, man? I don't know. I know today is a big day in politics, and I do think – and I'm not being sarcastic at all. I do think there will be some let's just say some different –
climate, more favorable.
Yes, it'll be more favorable to the colleges and to the conferences, I think, and not as favorable to the players. I just do. I think that the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, I think they will decide that they will probably side with the colleges and the conferences when it comes to this. And I'll be honest with you, fine. Whatever it takes to clear it up and get this done, expedite it and get it done as soon as possible, because this is all outrageous. There was a tweet that, and I'm not gonna. I'll stop after this. But number one, I don't know if you can even call Miami. The NCAA came out and said it is well within the rules for a person to be enrolled in a school, unenroll, and then enroll in another school and play immediately. And that was the NCAA's only
since
comment.
When?
Since this, man.
Since last week.
Since the town was burned down. So that's their stance. So I don't think anything's going to come of it. But there was a tweet today that Jane Daniels next year, a tweet on Sunday, that Jane Daniels next year is going to make less money than Carson Beck. Oh. It's insanity. It is insanity what's going on. And hopefully it changes. I do think there will be some will with what's happening today, quite frankly. I do think that this will get fixed. I think it has a better chance of getting fixed sooner now. I don't know why. It's just a feeling I get. I know the Department of Education and the Department of Justice both had these long I don't even know what you'd call them. They weren't tweets. They were
statements.
They were complaints about lawsuits and pending lawsuits, and it's like the Department of Justice and the Department of Education are going to completely switch here very soon, and we'll see what's on their radar and what side they take when it comes to all this. But I do think it'll be different. But anyway, that to say, I just hope it gets fixed. One way or the other, whether it's collective bargaining, these guys become employees, or there's a cap to what they can make, which doesn't seem constitutional. Certainly doesn't seem of a capital market, but whatever, man. Whatever it has to take for this to be reeled in. But yeah, Miami stays cheating. They just cheat. We all know that, gang. We all know. And Nevin Shapiro, didn't he just get pardoned?
He got pardoned, yeah.
So who knows? They're back, baby. The Canes are back because Nevin's back. Who knows? But yes, they went. So he didn't. You don't have to ask to be in the portal. You just enter the portal. But he wasn't officially in the portal, and that kind of. That's not really the way the protocol works.
Well, no, you have to submit it to compliance, and compliance has got 2 days to then process it, but they never processed it. Like he said that I have yet to be put into the transfer poll by Wisconsin, which is impeding my ability to speak with schools, he said. He said he's met all the requirements of the NCAA to enter the transfer portal process. I've yet to be put into the portal by Wisconsin. So, yeah.
All right.
Anyhow. How about hoops? Break up the Noles, man. Are we on bubble watch? I haven't needed to listen to Joe Lenardi in such a long time. I might need to start seeing what our guys got to say after the Noles continue. What are they, won 6 of their last 8 or something like that? Pretty emphatic, convincing 91-78 win over the Jackets on Saturday. Sleepy nooner, but the Noles came to play. Thoughts, Corey Clark, on the resurgent Florida State men's basketball program?
Yeah, look, I'm not Debbie Downer. They played their last 3 games. Let's see, the last 4 games. 3 were wins against horrible teams, or at least bad teams. Syracuse is bad. Georgia Tech is bad. Miami is ungodly. They just gave up the most points of any Division I school in the country this year on Saturday. They gave up 117 at home to SMU and lost by 50 or 40. But, hey, Matthew Cleveland scored 31.
Ooh.
Don't know how many he gave up. Clearly a lot, because they gave up 117 as a team and they lost by 40, and they were down like 60-25 in the first half. So that team is cashed out. But the concern, I thought for the most part Florida State played well. I thought again they played well on defense, but it was a shorthanded Georgia Tech team that isn't all that talented anyway, and they kind of let them get back in the game in the second half until Malik Ewan took over down the stretch in the final 5 minutes. They went on a 16-3 run. From the 5-minute mark of the game to the 2-minute mark to put the game away. But, yeah, fine game, good win. They did what they had to do, Aslan. And I think we're to the point now where you can see a path. So I'm just looking at it now. In the net rankings, they're number 66 in the country in the net rankings. But they're 1-3 on the road. And they got 2 road games coming up. They got Cal on Wednesday and Stanford on Saturday. It's the West Coast swing. So they got Cal and Stanford.
I hope they're going to stay out there.
Yeah, they absolutely will. That would be crazy if they didn't. But I'm looking, and I'm trying to find their opportunities for, like, quad 1 wins the rest of the way. Obviously, they play Duke, but that's at Duke in, like, a month. That's a really hard win.
Clemson, Louisville, North Carolina.
Clemson is 31 in the net. Pittsburgh is still 33, even though Pittsburgh's lost 4 games in a row, so that's still a good win for now. So Clemson is 31. They get Clemson at home. North Carolina is 38. So that's it.
Louisville, not?
No, but they've already played Louisville and lost. But I think they're ahead of Louisville in the net rankings, which is, unless I missed them. Did I miss Louisville?
Shows are going to play at Louisville.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, guess a home and home or whatever.
Oh yeah, Louisville's 29th. So they've got opportunities, but it's like, look, the one thing I need to see from this team is the ability to play on the road. I know they can play well at home for the most part, especially against bad teams. But their only road win was at Miami, right? Didn't they won at Miami? Yeah, they played at Miami. Yes. But that's not. I mean, you just saw SMU put 117 on that team in that gym. I'm just, look, man, they should get to 20 wins. So it's not an abject embarrassment like it was 2 years ago, and they're better than they were last year. Malik Ewan, if you can get him to stay, is I mean, If they were better, Aslan, he would be an All-American candidate. The guy is just a freak show.
Yeah.
He had another double-double. I think he had 17 and 11. He didn't dunk at the end of the game either. When the game was out of reach, they actually put in walk-ons. But if they can win, so they got what they have coming up is they have Cal on the road, Stanford on the road, and then Virginia Tech at home. Virginia Tech is not good this year. If they can just split on this West Coast swing, then they're still right where they need to be, because then they should theoretically be, by the time we're talking next week, what would that make them, 15-6? With still some real important bubble-saving games out there. But they're going to have to go beat somebody good, whether it's Clemson at home or Duke on the road. North Carolina they play. I'm not sure if that's a home game or a road game. I assume it's a home game.
Carolina is at home.
Yeah. So they're going to have to beat – and Stanford just beat North Carolina. So I'm trying to look for where Stanford is to see if they're worth anything. Stanford is 77 in the RPI. California is – never mind. I can't spell California. They are Wake Forest is like in the top 100. Let's see. Cal is 129. So they've got – you can't lose to a team that's 129 in the net. And that's who they play Wednesday. So that's a really important game. The cool thing is, though, Aslan, as we sit here in middle of January, getting to the end of January, is they're playing meaningful games. Yeah. Look, until they prove to me they can be a decent team on the road, I'm not going to believe them to be a decent team on the road, and they're not going to get in the tournament if they can't win on the road. Like, yeah, beat Clemson at home, great. Even beat North Carolina at home, great. If you go 1-9 on the road, you're not getting into the tournament when your net is somewhere in the 50s or 60s. But if you can start winning a few games on the road, that bumps up your net. If you can get in the top 50, just to remind people, there's 68 teams that get invited. 33 conference winners and 35 at-larges? So to be safe, you probably need to be in the top 40 to 45 in the RPI or the net to have a realistic chance to get in as an at-large. Right now they're at 66, which is obviously outside of that. But they could sneak up higher. They've got an opportunity, and I think they've got the ability. They're not good enough on defense probably to be a great team, but they could be a good enough team to you hope this gives them confidence. And maybe they're about to go on a run. It's always hard to win on the road, but if they can go out and beat Cal, maybe beat Stanford, then come back and beat Virginia Tech, I mean, they're all winnable. Then all of a sudden you're 16-5, and you're 7-3 in the ACC. You really do have a chance, and people do start talking about you. But I like that they put themselves in position to get into position.
Yeah, man.
So that's good to see.
32 conference champs, 36 at-large bids.
Now, obviously, some of those conference champs will also be in the top 36 of the RPI anyway.
Right.
So that's like whoever wins the SEC is going to be already one of those top 40 teams in the RPI or the net. So that's why I say it probably goes down to like 45 or 50 to give yourself a realistic chance on the bubble to get in. But, losing it, if they could have, I would love for them to be able to play Florida now. Malik Ewan was terrible in that game, especially for him. They would get a different Malik Ewan. I think they're a better team now than they were then, but Florida's one of the best teams in the country. And they just don't have a lot of opportunities to get huge wins. By the way, shout out to our man Dennis Gates. Missouri is on a roll.
They're back. All right, they were terrible last year, but all right, so they bounced back. Good. Yeah,
they are. I'm trying to see what they are. They're 24 now in the net. They're 15-3. But they are. They're good.
Get out of the SEC, Dennis. Get out of the SEC. Why don't you come back here, man?
It's a lot easier over here, Dennis. Yeah. You don't have to go play at Auburn and Tennessee and all this nonsense. You get to play Miami and Georgia Tech. So who would have thought that we'd be saying that the ACC is the easier conference in basketball. But, yeah, shout out to Watkins, had a nice game. Taylor Bowen, I think he had 20, knocked down some big threes. And then Ewan just, once he started asserting himself offensively, kind of just took the game over. And Georgia Tech isn't very good. That all helped.
According to Joe Lenardi right now, 12 teams from the SEC, the most of any conference in his bracket. ACC with 5.
All right, you could see your way sneaking in there. Like SMU would be another. I don't know when they haven't played SMU yet, have they?
Correct.
They play SMU at some point.
Season finale.
Okay, at the Tuck.
Yes,
buddy. Now wouldn't that be awesome? Because SMU, I just looked at it. I want to see where they are because they're not a horrible team. Let's see. Hold on one second. Oh, maybe they are.
Don't you feel the weight of the world on you when you're trying to do some live research?
Why wouldn't it be?
They're 14-4, 8-2 at home.
Oh yeah,
5-2 in the conference.
Yeah, they're 35th in the net. So that's that would be a good chance at a good win. And maybe, just give yourself a chance over the next 6 weeks to make that game matter. Now you're going to lose some. It's college basketball, and you're not all that good. You're not a great team. Even the 2020 team lost 5 times. Like you're going to lose some games. Maybe one you shouldn't lose. But if you take care of business at home and you sneak away a couple of road wins, set yourself up for that SMU game where maybe you're whatever you would be. You'd be 12-7 in the ACC. And you have a chance to get to 13 conference wins, your 21st win overall or whatever it would be, and in a high another quad 1 win, maybe puts you on the bubble where you don't have to go win the tournament to get in. But hey, it's better to be talking like this in January than the last 2 years, right?
Amen.
Because those were awful.
And we just want to talk about the football team like this in November.
Amen, brother.
Full circle.
Amen.
Bringing it full circle. All right, that's a wrap for us. 2 more shows most likely for you folks this week. Seminole Headlines also would be back on Tuesday, I would assume. Yes, Corey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, come on, buddy. Of course.
In the meantime, you got Jeff Cameron Show. You've got the PRB Premium Recruiting Board. More fallout. I shouldn't say fallout. That sounds like a negative connotation. More buzz vibe checks from the junior day and such. All over on the Tribal Council, warchant.com, Premium Recruiting Board. Subscribe, like, 5-star rating, review, all that kind of stuff. For Corey, I'm Malzahn. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.